Midnight Drearies.
It started gradually, almost imperceptibly. People began to lose interest in the arts, in writing and painting, in creating anything new or beautiful. They stopped reading books and watching movies, preferring instead to scroll through endless feeds of viral videos and clickbait headlines. They stopped talking to each other, stopped listening to each other, stopped caring about anything beyond their own immediate needs and desires. At first, it was just a few isolated incidents. A writer who couldn't find a publisher for his latest novel, an artist who struggled to sell her paintings, a musician who played to empty venues. But as time went on, it became clear that something larger was happening. The world was losing its creativity, its ability to imagine and innovate, its capacity for empathy and compassion. It wasn't just the arts that suffered. Science and technology stagnated, as researchers and engineers found it harder and harder to come up with new ideas and breakthroughs. Politics became more polarized and divisive, as people retreated into their own echo chambers and refused to engage with those who held different opinions. The media fed on this, stoking the flames of outrage and resentment in order to generate clicks and views. As the world became more divided and angry, strange things began to happen. People reported seeing things that shouldn't be possible: ghosts, monsters, strange lights in the sky. Some claimed that they were being visited by beings from other dimensions, or that they were experiencing glimpses of alternate realities. At first, these reports were dismissed as hallucinations or delusions. But as more and more people began to experience these phenomena, it became clear that something was going on. The fabric of reality itself seemed to be unraveling, and no one knew why. It was in this context that the protagonist of our story, a young woman named Ava, found herself struggling to survive. She was an artist, or had been, until this ugly world lost interest in all things creative and beautiful. Now she worked a dead-end job in a convenience store, barely making enough to pay her rent and buy food. She lived alone in a tiny apartment, spending her evenings scrolling through social media feeds and wondering why she felt so empty. One night, as she was walking home from work, she saw something that stopped her in her tracks. It was a creature unlike anything she had ever seen before, a mass of writhing tentacles and glowing eyes, pulsing with a sickly green light. It seemed to be looking right at her, and she felt a cold terror grip her heart. She tried to run, but her legs wouldn't move. The creature loomed closer and closer, and she felt herself slipping into a kind of trance. It was like the world around her was melting away, replaced by a swirling vortex of colors that didn't exist and sounds so intricate yet melancholy, unlike anything she had ever heard. When she came to, she was in a different place entirely. It was a dimly lit chamber, filled with strange machinery and pulsing with an eerie energy. She felt disoriented and scared, but also strangely calm. It was like she had been here before, or like this was where she was meant to be. A voice spoke to her from the darkness, a voice that seemed to come from all around her at once. It was a soothing voice, but there was an undercurrent of menace to it. "Welcome, Ava," the voice said. "You have been chosen to help us." "Chosen?" Ava said, her voice trembling. "Chosen for what?" "To save the world," the voice said. "To bring back the creativity and imagination that has been lost. To help us defeat the forces of darkness that threaten to consume us all." Ava didn't know what to make of this. She felt like she was in a dream or a nightmare. But there was something about the voice that made her believe it was real. She knew that she had to do something, to try and save the world from whatever was happening to it. "What do I need to do?" she asked. "You must journey into the heart of darkness," the voice said. "There, you will find the source of the corruption that is infecting our world. You must destroy it, before it destroys us all." Ava didn't know how to do that, but she knew that she had to try. She nodded, and a small crystalline device appeared before her. "This will help you on your journey," the voice said. "It will guide you, protect you, and give you the power you need to fight the darkness. But be careful, the journey will not be easy. You will face many trials and dangers along the way." With that, Ava found herself back in her own world, clutching the crystal in her hand. She didn't know where to begin, but she knew that she had to try. She started to walk, letting the crystal guide her towards the heart of darkness. Along the way, she saw things that made her skin crawl, creatures that should not exist, twisted and warped by the darkness that surrounded them. She fought them off, able to use the crystal like an energy weapon, blasting the beasties back and away. As she journeyed deeper into the heart of darkness, she began to see the source of the corruption. It was a giant, pulsing mass of blackness that seemed to be alive. It was like a cancer, spreading through the world and consuming everything in its path. Ava knew that she had to destroy it, but she didn't know how. She tried blasting it with the crystal, but it seemed to have no effect. She felt like giving up, like there was nothing she could do to stop the darkness from consuming everything. But then she remembered something she had heard in a documentary. It was a quote from Buckminster Fuller, an American inventor and futurist. He said, "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete." Ava didn't know if it would work, but she decided to try. She closed her eyes and focused, letting the crystal guide her hands. She started to create, drawing on the memories of all the beautiful things she had ever seen or imagined. At first, it was just a flicker of light, but then it grew and grew until it was a shining beacon that illuminated the entire chamber. The darkness recoiled from it, hissing and spitting, but it couldn't touch it. Ava knew that she had found the answer. She kept creating, pouring all of her creativity and imagination into the light. Incredible vistas filled with dancing colors and people. Oh, the people! They were laughing and singing and playing and painting and loving and caring. It grew and grew, until it was a blinding supernova that consumed the darkness and left only light and beauty in its wake. When she opened her eyes again, she was back in her own world. The sky was blue, the birds were singing, and people were smiling and talking to each other. It was like a weight had been lifted from the world, and Ava knew that it was because of her. From that day on, the world was different. People started to care again, about each other and about the world around them. They started to create, to imagine, to dream. And they never forgot the lesson that Ava had taught them, that the only way to defeat darkness is with light, and that the only way to create light is with creativity and imagination.